we're going to be talking about getting richer. Is that okay? Yes, sir. All right, cool. Just to be clear, does anybody here feel like you conceal your intentions for your desire to get richer? Do you feel like in public, when you go talk to a waitress or a waiter or maybe a stewardess on your plane, do you feel as open with them as you feel with some of your rich friends or some of the people that you know are more at your level or above you? The issue is that concealing behavior leads to a whole conflict when it comes to getting richer. And I'm going to show you some ways that you might be dealing with some blockers right now that you might not be aware of. We're going to talk a lot about money beliefs. Is that cool? Yeah. All right, cool. So let's get started. Before we dig into this, I just want to make my intentions known. I'm not a dickhead. I'm not trying to sound pretentious with any of this. I'm not here to hard flex in front of you. I will show some examples that, taken out of context, I'm sure I'll look terrible on the internet. But still, my intention here, to be clear, is very pure in a sense. I believe that rich people are some of the most important people on planet Earth. I believe that you hold a responsibility to not only help yourself, but to help others. I believe that we have, as rich people, the speed that's required to materialize better conditions for the planet. And I think a lot of you have that responsibility and that idea already in your head. You might not be amplifying it as much as you should. But just to be clear, none of this is to come off like a hard flex. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. Let's get started. See this photo up here of this little dog? This is my cousin's dog. And unfortunately, it had a medical emergency. The dog was taken to the vet. And the vet came out and looked at my cousin and said, you're going to have to give this dog an emergency surgery or it's going to die. My cousin was like, all right, let's do it. The vet said, well, just to disclose, this costs $5,000. Can you swing that? My cousin worked at Starbucks at the time, made about $1,000 a month, was also in college, already had some medical debt from a gallbladder surgery that she had. She heard that $5,000 price point, and that was a ton of money to her. You know what happened to the dog? He had to put the dog down. What made that decision? Was it the love for the dog? Was it the desire to keep the dog healthy? Or was it the money? The money made the decision. Now, unfortunately, my cousin had too much pride to ask anybody for help, didn't even explore funding options. And something that they loved had to get put down because they didn't have enough money to keep it alive. It's a shame. These, on the other hand, are my 3 little wiener dogs. And just to be clear, I'd make fun of me if I had 3 wiener dogs too, so it's okay to crack a joke if you'd like. But they're so cute, okay? It's Oreo, Pepito, and Lola up here. And my fiance and I, we love these dogs. Now, first of all, and obviously, if my dogs had a medical emergency, money wouldn't be the issue. They'd be kept alive as long as possible and as long as they're healthy. But if my dog died, do you know what would happen? If one of these 3 cute little wiener dogs up here, do you know what would happen if they died? I'd buy another. I'd adopt one. No, I would clone them. $25,000, $50,000, depending on who you go with. You can clone a dog. You can clone a horse. You can clone a cat. And no, before you have any limiting beliefs here, they're not going to be little demons, okay? They're not soulless. The exact same dog that you had before. The environmental factors will develop their personality. You know how good that feels? My dogs will be alive forever. I love that. Now I want to tell you this. What makes that decision? Just my love for the dogs? Nah, it takes $25,000 to keep an animal alive forever on a cloning process. You're not going to do that without the cash. Now, objectively, a lot of people in life, they unfortunately neglect and ignore that money damn near makes every decision you make in your life, and you know it. You might be lying to yourself, you might be lying to others, but you and I both know. What type of room did you stay in while you were here? What hotel did you pick? Did you get a suite or did you get one of those shitbox studios? Which one did you pick? What hotel did you stay at? How much did you gamble last night? Did you gamble at all? Does dropping $5,000 on a blackjack table, does that still hurt? Money makes your decisions. You think you do, you don't. Your wallet makes your decisions. How you describe it to yourself, how you justify it to yourself. There's a good quote. You define the reasons, or the reasons define you. A lot of people in life, when you objectively ignore that money makes all your choices, you start to get manipulated into this reality where you find yourself settling, where you find yourself making these compromises. You know, I'm going to tell you a quick story about this shit commercial flight I took yesterday. I hate commercial flights. I don't lie about it. I don't want to make it good. I fucking hate them. And I'll tell you what, I sat in this, first class seat. It cost $3,000 for myself and my fiance to fly out here round trip. It costs $100,000 to fly out here on a PJ from Miami and back. Do I have $100K that I can freely swing on a PJ round trip for a 48-hour trip currently? No. I don't have $100K that I feel comfortable dropping on that. Do I lie to myself about it and say, I like commercial better, it's safer. I don't mind standing in TSA. I never wear socks. I had to wear socks yesterday to go through that fucking TSA line. Worst part is, you know what the worst part was? After we get onto the plane, we sat on the tarmac in Miami heat in this hot little metal tube for an hour. I legitimately came damn near to a heat stroke. I was taking ice cubes, rubbing them on my forehead, praying I wouldn't die on that plane. And you know what I thought to myself the entire time? First of all, I felt terrible for my wife. I said, man, the only reason I'm sitting here right now in this absolute shithole is because I'm still too poor. I'm still too broke. And you know what that does to me? It makes me want to get richer. It makes me ask myself objectively, what do I need to change about my business model? What can I do to charge more? What can I do to make more people more money so I can get paid more money? Instead of just saying, it's not that bad. At least I saved $97K. Not me. Now, here's the other side of the coin. When we are approaching this concept of the real reasons you make decisions being about money, a lot of what most of you will do out there is you'll lie to yourself and you'll lie to other people. You ask me, hey, Jeremy, do you like that commercial flight? Fuck no, I didn't. Hey, Jeremy, do you like all these situations that are decided by... We were just at Louis V before this, and I had bought 3 pairs of shoes for my fiance, and there was a nice bag, and it cost $4,500. And I was like, well, I could either spend $4K on these 3 pairs of shoes, or I could spend $9K on this extra bag. And I wanted to get the bag, but I thought to myself, I'm like, I could take that same $5K, and there's a lot of things I could do with it. I've been buying Section 8 houses as an example. I have a lot of ad spend I could put that towards. There's a lot of ways I could take that $5K and turn it into more money. Instead of lying to myself, I ask myself, what amount of money do I need to where I would feel more comfortable just to make this purchase? And I then make the adjustments in my business. This concept called virtue signaling. Most of y'all do this shit. And virtue signaling, by definition, let's read it together, shall we? The action or practice of publicly expressing opinions or sentiments intended to demonstrate one's good character or the moral correctness of one's position on a particular issue. This would be like the software guys who create a SaaS company to sell it for a 40x multiple for like 100 mil so they could go on their spiritual journey. But what they tell the world is, I'm creating my CRM software so I can help people, I thoroughly enjoy impacting the planet with my CRM software I've created. It's like, just tell us what you actually mean. What's your true intent here? I'm trying to make a company I could flip for a 40x multiple and sell for 100 mil so I could go fuck off the rest of my life and be Buddhist. Now hear me out. Virtue signaling is the act of lying. It's the act of manipulating your internal model, which takes you away from reality. Reality is where the action is. Reality is where the truth is. Reality is where the money is. Is there any action or progress to be made in a manipulated world that's not real? Yes or no? Can I progress in my fantasy land I've created for myself? You get what I mean? Virtue signaling. And you see it everywhere. I hold myself, my peers, those around me accountable to not lying about their intentions because they make more progress when they operate in a reality-based internal model. You picking up what I'm putting down? You guys with me? You think I'm a dickhead yet? I'm not trying to do that. Okay. Now, to be clear, while we're on the topic of not lying to ourselves, let's talk about health. My mom, God bless her, she has multiple sclerosis. Does anybody know what multiple sclerosis is? It's a debilitating disease. Your immune system fights against itself. It's essentially the process of your nervous system just deteriorating through time. And my mother, she can't walk anymore. She's confined to one of those electric scooters. And she can still stand up, but, she has to, grab something, Every decision she makes now, the type of house she lives in, it has to be accessible. It can't have, even a little stair. Something like this little step right here. She literally wouldn't be able to lift her foot up to be able to get over it. Now, there's this experimental stuff right now, stem cells, and $7,500 per IV, okay? I bought my mom 4 of these, and she comes down. She lives in northeastern Alabama, believe it or not. And long story short, she comes down to Miami. She comes to this doctor, and she gets her first IV of 30 million stem cells. And she goes back home, and I asked her, I said, what kind of progress have you made? She said for the first time in her life, she was able to stand up without having to hold on to anything. She was able to stand up and just not have to stabilize herself. Okay? There's this new scanning technique. It's called QBio, and it's out in San Francisco currently. You can go get a yearly checkup on yourself where, for free at first, and then it costs $3,500 a year. You could scan yourself with an MRI, top to bottom, and you could see any type of potential tumor, cancers, before they even started, way before what most modern medicine can do. $3,500 a year and a trip to San Francisco, though. You think every human being on planet Earth, although beneficial, is going to take up that offer? No, it comes down to money is what makes that decision. Now, to be clear, for the first time in my life when I was 25, I had a migraine. The first migraine I had, I'm chilling, and all of a sudden, in the bottom right corner of my vision, it just started to swirl. And I was like, what the fuck is going on with my vision? This was crazy to me. And I run my head under cold water in the shower, that made me feel better. All of a sudden, I'm extremely sensitive to light. I couldn't really see that well. And I had to put on my blue blockers and sunglasses. I closed all the blinds in my penthouse at the time. And I just laid there. And then all of a sudden, I had this really sharp pain right here in the center of my forehead. And I called my mom, and I was trying to articulate to her what was happening, just to try to get some advice about what I should do. And I was trying to say, I have a headache. What was coming out of my mouth was, I have a haircut. I said, I have a haircut 3 times. But in my brain, I'm saying, I have a headache. I'm freaking out. While I'm saying this, my left arm, starting from my pinky, starts to slowly go numb, creeping up my hand to my arm. I thought I had a stroke. I call 911. I go to the hospital. They do CAT scans, they do MRIs. Well, you didn't have a stroke, Jeremy. You have migraines with aura symptoms. And they were like, yeah, totally normal. And I was like, what do you mean? I go, what do I do? They go, well, you can get on stints the rest of your life, which is a prescription medication you'll take daily, or you're going to have to make some lifestyle changes. Look at this poor girl up here. Her path of trying to solve it cost her $12,465.09. And as you could see here, she was complaining about not being able to afford that. And by the way, look how many treatments that was for. It's for 90 days. 1 quarter. You know what I did? This guy right here, his name's Mark Dama. I hired a high-performance coach, and it cost me $5,000 a month, and I made all kinds of changes. I bought probably $30,000 in recovery-related equipment. I bought a cold plunge tub for $10,000. I bought this infrared mat. I bought an infrared sauna. I was paying $15,000 essentially once a quarter myself to go to this place called Infinity Sports Institute down in Miami to do these things like DEXA scans and to do all these blood work analysis tests. And when I was deficient on something, I just went on a routine from all these coaches and all these medical professionals that I hired. I've had 2 migraines in my life, never had one since. But that's because I was able to afford the solution. Let's say you get a severe cancer right now. You have to fly across the world to some experimental doctor in China. Are you going to be able to afford it if it costs $300,000 in cash and you have to swing it right now? What if it's your wife? What if it's your husband? The point I'm trying to make once again is money makes the decision, not you. Money dictates the options you have in those situations, not you. Does that make sense? Let's continue on. So money enabled me to solve my problem, okay? Anybody here have some serious traumas in their life? You know, I'm sure you all have. Raise your hand if you have. So, yeah, just as you all, I've had plenty of traumas. And trauma can really hold you back. There's a lot of great books on the topic about undoing trauma and what that then does for your psyche. Well, I watched this YouTube video one day. Does anybody here know who Rob Dyrdek is? Rob Dyrdek, for all those who don't know, he's an entrepreneur. He originally started as a skater, and he's flipped his way to multiple $100 million. This guy runs a VC fund now. He runs a whole bunch of companies, very successful guy. Rob had an interview on YouTube. The guy was like, "What do you attest all your success to?" He said, "I got hypnotized for success by a guy named Dr. George Pratt." You know what I did? I said, "What the fuck is that?" I called Dr. George. And I said, "Dr. George, what's this whole hypnotism for success thing you got going on I'm hearing about?" Dr. George says, "Well, it's a little bait and switch, Jeremy. What we actually do is we scrub the traumas from your brain. And that enables you to operate at a higher level." And I was like, "Go on." He explains to me that, this whole process of having essentially any kind of trauma, emotional, physical, mental, sexual, he can scrub all this from your psyche completely. With a little bit of skepticism, I schedule the 3 appointments. I fly out to La Jolla, California, and I meet with Dr. George. As soon as I left that 3rd appointment, you know how y'all have that little voice in your head that's just talking all day, sometimes makes you a little unproductive? That voice was eradicated. I had nothing in my brain besides productive, proactive thoughts. There was no more reactivity. It was quite interesting. I go back to see Dr. George generally twice a year. I've attested to this more than anything else I think I could attest to in terms of personal development and performance. Dr. George is about $6.95 a session. And obviously you got to take the trip out there to La Jolla. Arguably not that expensive for somebody like yourselves, right? But once again, point is, not everybody can afford this. If you have a traumatic experience, you have the ability to overcome it. But the resources you have make the decision. Do you get what I'm saying? Okay, let's go on. By the way, there's an article about this if you guys want an interview in more detail about me getting hypnotized, just to be clear. Now, I know a lot of rich people who really lost their edge, I see it most commonly in my students. They start making a couple $100,000 a month, or even my clients. They get to 7 figures a month, and they fucking stall. I have this guy, he's in my Inner Circle program, $300K a month is what he's been at for 2 years. Why do you think he's stuck? He thinks he's got enough. He thinks that with the amount of money he currently makes, that it covers everything. He's doing things like, he has a few cars, got a nice house. My neighbor has a 30,000 square foot house and has 32 cars. Is that just what getting richer is about? To aspire to get into a bigger house and get more cars? No. There's plenty of things money could do, obviously outside of ourselves, to be able to help others. But we've got to be aware of those things. We've got to be acutely aware at all times of the things that we need more money for. Remember at the start of this, I told you that you're likely lying to yourselves right now about all the things, all those decisions you think you're making. It really comes down to the fact that you've been constrained on cash. That's what determines whether you have 5 houses or 1. That's what determines whether you can have a charitable cause and actually help the world, or whether you're going to be selfish and just have a little fucking apartment and a car. That's what determines whether you stay in coach for the rest of your life or whether you go on a PJ. On TikTok recently, I saw crazy. These people in Syria on live streams with no legs, begging for money, with 4 children in the video. When you see a video like that, what do? Do you just scroll past? There's a lot that we can do to help the world as rich people. But if you're sitting here being selfish, thinking that you've made it because you got a decent-sized house and some fucking vehicles, you got a little investment portfolio and maybe a handful of real estate properties, you and I both know you settled. You and I both know you made plenty of compromises up to this point. You and I both know that you sitting here right now likely lost that edge. Maybe you made a little bit of money in crypto, you know? You did well on a few stocks. Who gives a f? You and I both know it's not enough. Are you being honest with yourself about it? Or have you convinced yourselves that you've reached the comfort plateau? Where are you at right now in your getting richer journey? Well, this student here, he had the mental cap at about 18 to 20K a month. Everybody's cap is different. It's all relative, right? On the little shit plane ride over here that I was just telling you about, where I was dying in the oven for an hour, while I was sitting there, dying of heat stroke, the stewardess, who's a male, was talking to the female stewardess. He said he had $100 a month to buy new clothes. And he wasn't saying it like it was a sad thing. He was saying it like he was proud of that. Everybody's cap is relative. For this student who messaged me, his cap was about 20K a month. That's a big ass 240K a year. Think about how little money that is if you live in any major city. Think about how little you can do for the world. You're very selfish if you stop at that level, aren't you? What can you do to help others with 18 to 20K a month, that scale? Not a damn thing. You can't even help your family with 240K a year nowadays. Everybody's cap is personal. What is your cap right now? Where is your threshold for you think you've got it? What's the threshold in assets? What's the threshold in cash flow? What's the threshold if you look back at your life and ask yourself where you got complacent? What do you need to be aware of that's going to push up that threshold? Everybody's number is personal. Get clear on what the number is. And I ask you once again, get the clarity on what you need to push the number up. It can always be more. You can always do more to help others. Money dictates the speed you can materialize reality. That's all it is. Okay, now to be clear, there's nothing more selfish than being rich and only supporting you. This isn't some charitable pitch. I'm not going to ask you to put up any money for other people. I'm just simply making it known. I have some people out here who they get to like 100K a month. And you believe it or not, they're still relatively paycheck to paycheck. They just buy stupid shit every month. Now to be clear, when I say there's nothing more selfish than being rich and not getting richer, I mean it in the sense that when you get rich enough and you get that complacency that sets in, you hit that level of comfort, who are you helping besides yourself? Who are you helping besides that small circle around you? Have you actually made an impact on the world yet? Or did you just suck a little money out of it and selfishly sit on it? I help rich people get richer for a living, but I use a portion of that money that I make to help other people who are in need. And I try to get richer so I can do that at scale because I accept my responsibility as somebody who's financially well off. Although all of you have individually built the businesses you have and individually done the work to get yourself to where you're at, I want to be clear, you still participate in our global society. And you have a responsibility there to make an impact on others outside of your own small circle and to just stop there. Does that make sense? Let's continue. So generally, once again, once you're rich enough, all that really means is you finally got enough for you. And I'd encourage, if that's you sitting here right now listening to this, remember, it's very simple to start this process of helping others. You got to be able to do stuff you can feel. It's not just wiring money over to your buddy's charity, because when you feel it, you'll do it more and you'll amplify it. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, to be clear, when I say rich people lost their edge, and I give you some of these examples, I do so because you got to adjust your motivational drivers as you continue to go from rich to richer to wealthy to wealthier. How do you go from 150 mil to saying, I need a B now, you know? I got to get to 10 Bs, you know? I got to make that shit look. I watched this video actually from Elena Cardone at Mike. He had this event for Wealth Accelerators. And she said, I want to make 10 billion look like a cakewalk. You know, you could see it in her eyes and feel it. She really wanted it. Do you have the same for anything right now? Does anything get you up every day and just make you say, man, I'm so fucking excited I get to do this today. I'm so excited I get to push the limit. I'm pumped to be able to do what I get to do. Or like I said, are you complacent? Now to be clear, Some examples of motivational drivers. A lot of them, unfortunately, like that kid who was at 18 to 20K a month. Did you read what he said? He said he wanted to go back to broke to experience the drive that he once had that he lost. Think about that. Think about how unhealthy that is. To say, I need to go back to feeling broke to be able to make more money. The drivers have to change to push you to that next level. Does that make sense? Do you have a very clear motivational driver that pushes you to get that wealthy? Think about how many assets I need to hand down. Think about those sophisticated trust structures that I'd have to develop in estate planning and all that shit to be able for generations to pass down that wealth and let it compound every fucking year, just getting more and more and more. Think about the impact my children's children will be able to have on the world positively from the lessons I'll pass down and more importantly from the assets that I'll hand down. I don't need to go back to broke to feel I need to get richer. I'm very clear on why I need to get richer. Are you? Now, just across the street actually at lunch, the waitress said, what are you going to go speak on after this? I said, well, I'm going to talk about getting richer and some money beliefs. She looked at me funny and goes, huh, all right, good luck. Well, to be clear, a lot of you guys, you get uncomfortable about being rich. You think you want to be rich, but in public, you try to conceal it. Do you think that concealing your intentions is a good thing to do when you're trying to openly get richer? Absolutely not. I want to be as open as I can. I want to get on the stage in front of people and talk about it. Because once again, when I conceal my behavior, I'm hiding something. How many of you, when you look at how people dress, you see them act all flamboyant, you know? They get the Fendi with the fucking double Fs all over it, you know? They get the Louis V with the Louis V badges all over it and all that shit. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, are you willing to go around and say, I'm trying to get to $1 billion right now, to the general public. And that's somebody who actually gets to $1 billion. Are any of you fearful to go out there and just openly say it? Have any of you changed the way you act on social media? Have you seen all these people get canceled? Have any of you changed how you socially behave based on the pressures of the world right now? When you see billionaires get criticized, how does it make you feel about wanting to be a billionaire? Could you take the heat? Subconsciously, when you address these things and you bring them up to your conscious thought, something changes. We get comfortable with it. And when we're open about it, guess where your money comes from? Other people. When you're open with your intentions, instead of collapsing to the social pressures of the world, there's action there. There's money there. Pressures, like I said, like being rich is bad. There's a lot of that going around right now. A lot of billionaire criticism. Think about how much people like Elon Musk has helped the world. Think about how much Jeff Bezos has helped the world. Do these people deserve to be criticized the way they are? And like I said, what's it make you think of yourself if you got to that level? Does it make you fearful of getting to that level? Point is, you can't be afraid to get rich. You can't be afraid to get rich. You can't conceal it. Does that make sense? Good. You can't feel guilt. You can't feel shame when you're trying to get rich. Does that make sense? Good. To get richer, I have to feel empowered in my process of doing so. If I fall to the pressures of the world along the way, you will compromise. You'll fall short. See this? This is the house. I do not own this house. I rent this house currently, $18K a month, and I love it. I have this group. It's called my Inner Circle program. I get like 40 to 50 people every 3 months. They come to this house. The reason I have to have such a big house, because I do these masterminds here. I assure you, I like big houses. I'm not trying to virtue signal to you. I genuinely need the space. Now, this house is actually getting too small, believe it or not. The group is growing. I need to put about 75 people in there. I need to plan for 100. Right away, I started looking in Miami. This is in southwest Miami. You can see it's by the farms. It's on a 5-acre lot. And the way it's laid out is perfect. There's an animal barn in that back left corner, and that's a guest house in the back right corner. I'm thinking to myself, I could put a full indoor basketball court where that animal thing is, and I could host my events in there. But I need the land and I need to build it because there's nothing like that I can rent. Does that make sense? So what do? I go look for property. I find 5 acres in Miami. It costs about $500K in cash. I could swing that. I was happy to do it. I call up the real estate agents. I'm like, hey man, I'm ready to buy this shit. They're like, no problem, Mr. Haynes, come on down, take a look at it. I came down and checked one. Within 2 days, Miami as a city announced that they were gonna rezone this entire agricultural area. They wanted to rezone it for residential. When they made this decision, every hedge fund that's into development you could imagine starts calling on all these property owners saying, I want to buy your swath of 5 to 10 acres for about 3 to 4 mil. Did that hurt? So now I get the call and they're like, hey, that same plot of land that was just $500K the other day, sorry, costs 3 mil now. Damn it. I'm gonna have to look somewhere else, I guess. I can't swing 3 to 4 mil just on the land. So I went and bought this. I looked in the great state of Texas. I found 15.5 acres. It was $356K. And I really like staying outside the city. I don't like being in the city. I like staying right outside of it. It's about a 45-minute drive to Nobu in Houston. That's how I judge where I like my distance to be. Long story short, buy it out. And I'm really excited. I'm like, all right, good. I got my land. I'm ready to build my mega palace. Let's get started. Well, I had this very unsettling feeling when I really started to approach dropping money into it. And you know what that unsettling feeling was? Compromise. Compromise. What do I mean? Well, I set out to buy a plot of land in Miami, not Houston, didn't I? Just because I got outpriced, does that mean I should compromise on what I actually wanted? No. That's what most of y'all do. You say, I want this. It goes above your head in terms of what you can afford. And instead of finding a way to afford it, you compromise like I did. Now I own this hunk of 15-acre land in Houston. I'm probably going to build like 4 little houses on it now and rent them out or something on Airbnb. I don't know. But you know why I'm not going to use it for what I initially compromised on it to be used for? Because I'm not going to compromise on what I actually want in my journey of getting richer. When I say I want to build a mega palace in Miami on 5 acres, I'm going to find what it takes to get the money. I'm not going to compromise along the way. I ask yourselves, how many times at this point in your getting richer journey have you made those little decisions, one after the other? All of a sudden you have a completely different life. Don't you? It's not hard to recalibrate. If you're too many decisions deep, you have loss aversion and you think, oh, well, I'm too deep, I can't give up now. Shut up. Get back to the root drive that you initially set out to accomplish and make real. Since some motivational rah-rah, this is telling you directly, if you've made a compromising decision, why not instead just say, how can I get bigger than the decision I need to make so I can actually make it? It's not that hard. Yeah, you might end up with an extra random hunk of land that you didn't actually need. Who cares? Go back to the original vision. Does that make sense? You get what I'm saying? Okay. So listen. I went back and I chose to reconnect to my higher target that I initially set out for. It's not hard. It's all a mentality. That's all it's been this entire time. It's a game of standards and how we're mentally framed, isn't it? How'd you get to this point? You took a fuckload of action. How was your mentality the entire time? It was honed in. You were in the fucking zone to get to this point you're at now, weren't you? And some of you guys, after you got there, like I said, you've gone off a few different paths and now you're living a different life. Keep the standards high. Get back to the original vision. And to be clear, here's the craziest part. You do this all on your own. Unless you have mentors, unless you're a part of groups where you get exposed to messages like this, you might have just floated for 20 plus years and ended up in a completely different life than you initially set out to live. Stay tapped into people who are willing to check you when you compromise. Does that make sense? Listen, I have a very simple question for you, okay? All these constructs I'm presenting to you, I call them mental frames. I ask you, how many mental frames, ways of thinking, beliefs do you currently have stacked in your favor to help get you richer versus how many mental frames do you currently have that are keeping you anchored for where you're currently financially at? I'll give you a few examples. A mental frame that I really like to participate in is one that I just saw my buddy Ryan, who's speaking here later today. I've known Ryan since 2017. He came to work for me back in the day when I was hiring salespeople. He was making about $80K a month at the time. I was like, why do you want to work for me? He's like, I want to learn. Well, I fired a majority of those people. I was a terrible boss back then, terrible leader. Long story short, I made some terrible decisions. I had to reset. Well, Ryan stuck around, not in the sense that he worked for me. He just kind of became a friend. I watched him through the years. Just recently, this particular year, it almost seemed like Ryan got fed up. Just coasting at $100K a month. He started a completely different business, and I watched him do it. He stayed at my house for 3 months, from January to March. By the time he left, that brand new business in the month of April did $1 million a month. You know what he did last month? $5.5 million. Think about that. Within a year, from zero to $5.5 million. How unbelievable does that sound when you hear it? Do you immediately compare it to your progress and say, well, I don't know, that doesn't sound like something that's sustainable? Do you say some stupid shit like that? Do you say to yourselves as soon as you hear that, I don't know, man, sounds like a lot of liability, a lot of risk. I don't think it could be me. What comes up when you hear it? What's that little voice say? Does it congratulate him? A few of you clap. That's a great mindset. What'd your actual voice say when you address it? You got that little hunk of shit in you right now that's holding you back? Or does that say, that little voice, does that say, man, I want to talk to that guy after this. I'm going to find out what the fuck he did. I'm going to tap into that. What kind of mental frame do you think he had while he did that? You think it was random? You think it was sporadic? No. He stacked mental frames that pushed him to get richer on top of each other. Excuse me for talking about your wife here for a second. His wife dated 2 billionaires before Ryan. He loves it. Talk to him about it. He loves it. You know how much mental pressure he feels that drives him to continue to get richer? Just from that one relationship he has. Think about it. He wants to live up to the standard. He's not going to compromise. As soon as he got into that relationship, life changed real fast for him. I watched it. One relationship, a few different beliefs, being honest about getting richer, it adds up fast. Mental frames, beliefs, your personality type, all your characteristics, they're fluid. You're not a static person. You're not defined just by your past experiences and who you determine yourself to be. It's all fluid. All of it can change. And it needs to change to serve you rather than hold you back or keep you stagnant. Does that make sense? You need more resources. This guy right here, he had a crazy experience on a commercial flight. And the crazier part was that people defended the guy kicking this guy's seat. This guy on Twitter comes out and he says, I just had the most bizarre experience on a commercial flight. He was flying in economy and the grown man behind him was just kicking his seat the whole time because he chose to recline. You all have the ability to recline right now in your little theater seats here. Do you even give a fuck what the person behind you thinks? I've never thought about that on a plane. Not one time have I thought, man, if I lean back right now, I wonder what the guy behind me is going to think. Apparently that's a thing now. And apparently grown men, thousands of people replied to this guy's tweet, justifying the behavior of the person who kicked the seat. Do you think this guy said, I got to get fucking richer so I never deal with that again? Or do you think he said, man, I should never sit in front of people like that again? Those two different mentalities for how he interpreted the situation would clearly lead to different outcomes, wouldn't they? How he interprets it is from his mental frames. Every piece of data that comes through your head, everything that's coming out of my mouth right now as I say it, you're interpreting it through your beliefs, through the way you look at the world. If those things are wrong or off or not intended to serve us in our path to getting richer, will you stack your odds of getting richer from the wrong mental stack? It's simple. If your mindset's off, you're off. And guess what? That age-old reason, I'll give you an example of a mental frame. How many people out there think that getting rich leads to unhappiness? You know, how many times have you heard a poor person say that? Oh, I don't want to get rich. You rich people are super unhappy. This is a study from Princeton that shows every dollar after $75,000 earned incrementally increases your experienced well-being and life satisfaction. Every dollar after $75,000 increases your positive feelings and decreases your negative feelings. Getting richer makes you happier. I want to get happier. I want to get richer. Getting richer makes you experience more life. I want to experience more life. I have data to back it. So what I'm encouraging you to do here is when I have a thought that I want to turn into a belief, I want to back it with data. I want to find data that reinforces to me I'm thinking the right way. Does that make sense? I'm going to talk to this lady right here after this about her thought process behind getting to a multi-billion-dollar portfolio for whatever the hell she's doing. Why? I want to understand the way she thinks about it. I want to hear those little things that she says. I had lunch with a billionaire who's one of my clients. The guy does $40 million a week. Looked me dead in the eyes and said, I do $40 million a week right now. Like it was casual. He dropped on me in that conversation. He says, you know, when I'm about to do a deal, I always tell the person, I'm not going to do this deal if it pays me anything less than $100K an hour. He's dead serious. Mental frames, beliefs, thoughts, all of these dictate how we do what we do when getting richer. I also do this through environment. I have 3 playlists I play all the time. One of them is called Straight Money, one of them is called the Thug Money playlist, and one of them is called Soft Money Vibes. It's just all tracks about money. I listen to them all day long. My environment, I have like 40 Sonos in my house, just thumping good music all day. I walk around, I'm just feeling it. I'm in the zone all day. Does that make sense? If I'm not feeling it, I'll go crank up the fucking surround sound and play some track like, I don't know, Thunderstruck or something like that, or some Little Baby, you know? Get it going. Music plays into our ability to get money. Our environment, by the way, these are all on iTunes if you want to look them up. They're great. Built by your boy, okay? So to be clear, I got to keep my standards high. I got to keep my beliefs right, okay? I got to keep my thoughts clean. I got to keep the people around me good. I got to keep my immediate environment to support and empower getting richer. Does that make sense? Okay. I'm going to give you some closing thoughts. I think that you, as a rich person, are some of the most important people on planet Earth. I told you this at the beginning. Your ability to inspire others, your ability with your money to materialize a better world, your ability to do it with speed. Man, you hold a serious responsibility on your shoulders. You know, and it's cool. I can see half the room right now is all excited and riled up and like, man, fuck, I love this. And I see the other half of the room, your shoulders are slouching. You're like, man, I hate this guy. You know, why'd he bring this guy up to talk? You know why he brought me up to talk? It's because for those of you slumping your shoulders thinking, can't wait for this to get done, you're the exact person who needs to hear this. You got to wake the fuck up. It's time. Stop pushing it off. Accept the responsibility. Be bigger than yourself. Get bigger than all those problems you want to solve. Embrace your responsibility that you have in our global society to make the world better. Stop focusing on bullshit material items exclusively. Reward yourself with those things. Do things to help the planet. The speed in which you can do this stuff when you have more money. That's the main thing I want to help you understand. If you got a measly $2-3 million a year you're going to throw at a global cause, not going to do much. Versus if you have a healthy $500+ million you throw at a problem annually, both from yourself and others, that's something where you make a serious impact and where you really push the world forward. Does that make sense? I believe in your expanded potential. I believe in what you could do to help the earth. I believe in you. You should believe in yourself. And you should push the limit. Enough with the complacency. Enough with just the little incremental growth you've been doing. Okay? Jetpack growth. Push it. The average human lifespan in the United States is 75 years old. How old are you? Anybody above the age of 37, congrats. You're more than halfway done with your life. Are you good? Have you done enough? Have you helped enough people? Are you satisfied that you got to eat good food and buy some clothes throughout your lifetime? Push it. Expand the potential. Does this make sense? Okay. I close with this. It's an individual game. You all have different drives. I can't get up here and say one message that's going to get you riled up. It might be your wealth for future generations like it is for me. It might be the fact you want to impact the world with a charitable cause. It might be that you just want to show yourself that you can expand on your potential greater than you are right now. Whatever it is, you got to tap into it, and you got to get excited. I want you to compare your current energy levels to what you just saw today. You know, when you talk about what you got going on in life, do you really feel it? You know? Are you tapped into it? Does it feel like you're really pushing it? Or have you stalled? Okay, well, last thing I close out with is this, ladies and gentlemen. I simply challenge you to get richer than you are today. And I challenge you in such a simple way. Whatever your current net worth is, if instead of incrementally growing it throughout the next couple years, instead of whatever your cash flow is, just incrementally expanding it over these next couple years, what if you exponentially grew it, you know? What would that take? Is this just going to be another event where you leave and you just go home and you just say, well, that was fun. I learned a lot. Time to get back to it. Got some Zoom calls to jump on. You going to go home and do the math? Or are you going to push it off? I bet no in this entire room right now of people who are financially well off, I bet literally maybe 3 to 5 of you will actually go home and do some kind of math to really push that limit. You know, one of my students, Zan, up here, he's been trying to crack $2 million a month for the last 3 months, and he hasn't done it. And every time I ask him, like, why didn't you crack $2 million a month yet? You know what he says? A bunch of reasons. He gives me all these, like, pretty logical things. You know what I say back? That's great. Those are awesome reasons, and they're for sure real. But what's it going to take? Are you just going to live by the reasons defining you, or are you going to define the reasons? Take back control of your lives, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed my presentation.